Okay. Well, welcome back to in-person meetings. I am opening the session tonight at 6:07 p.m., Monday, April 11th, 2022. Our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor Eddie Davis of Bishop Nazarene via Zoom.
Good
Welcome.
evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Madam Mayor, esteemed council members, city employees, and fellow Bishopians, if you join me in prayer, I'd really appreciate it. Lord God, thank you so much for this municipality. Thank you for our valley. Thank you for the beauty that constantly surrounds us and reminds us of your goodness, of your love, of your constancy. Lord, I pray, and I pray that everyone in this council chamber joins me in asking that you would help us stand up for justice. You would help us speak up for what is good and right and true. Lord, I pray that you would impress on our consciences what is good and that we would resist what is evil and dark and damaging. Lord, I pray for the families in this town. At the root of our community is our families. And pray for the mothers and fathers to be strengthened in love to their children, that they take joy in their jobs and engage as citizens. Lord, I pray for the divorced families who have been remarried and have blended families. Help the kids to get along. Help the spouses to forgive their ex-spouses, some of whom live around the corners. Lord, this is a small town and we need your help. So we pray that there would be an abundance of goodwill, of mercy, of forgiveness, especially for the children who are growing up in this community, but also for the adults. Lord, we pray for the singles in this community that you would bless them and strengthen them, help them to get on a good life path, to make good choices, that they would be the right kind of people who would meet somebody and commit a lifelong love to them and strengthen our community even more. Protect them from foolish decisions. Help us as adults to speak into the lives of the youth and guide them and instruct them. Most of all, Lord, I pray that you would light a fire in our consciences and we would not call what is evil good, and we would not call what is good evil. Help us to be bold and yet loving. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. If you could please remain standing or stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Got a big old screen.
It's nice.
I didn't see that today.
A roll call, please. Here.
Councilmember Kong,
Here.
Councilmember Garcia,
Here.
Councilmember Mahovey, Mayor Pro Tem Ellis.
Here.
Mayor Schwartz.
Here. Okay. Report on actions taken. Oh, public comment. Notice to the public. This time is set aside to receive public comment on matters not calendared on the agenda. When recognized by the mayor, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Under California law, the city council is prohibited from generally discussing or taking action on items not included in the agenda. However, the city council may briefly respond to comments or questions from members of the public. Therefore, the city council will listen to all public comment, but will not generally discuss the matter or take action on it. We have public comment from Jane Askin. Yes, right up there. No, it's fine.
Of the City of Bishop. I'm here this evening because I am very concerned about the fire danger risk in our area due to another drought year. I am requesting the City Council to consider banning the sale and discharge of fireworks in our area. So far this year, we have already experienced 2 fires. The airport fire was major and burnt at an unprecedented rate. We were fortunate that the wind took the fire out of town. Otherwise, there could have been a very different outcome. We could have experienced what Swa Meadows and Paradise did in 2015, when they lost 40 homes to fire. I am aware there is a concern about eliminating the sale of fireworks because it is a fundraiser for the Little League as well as some churches. However, I hope the City Council would not put these activities above the protection of our beautiful community and homes. There are still 8 months to the year for these organizations to put in place a safer fundraising activity. In addition to being a major fire risk, fireworks have a very negative effect on our environment, on the animals, both natural and pets, as well as some individuals, and are the cause of many accidents. I hope as a community, we will engage in being a more conscious society and have more concern for the impact our actions have on our beautiful area and find a less destructive way to celebrate. Our neighbor Mono County has for several drought years had a ban in place on the sale and discharge of fireworks, except organized displays. I am also approaching the Board of Supervisors with the same request. I thank you for your serious consideration of protecting our homes and the wonderful area we live in by banning the sale and discharge of fireworks.
Thank you very much, Jane, for your comments. Do we have any other public comment?
I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Direction was given to staff on actions taken in closed session. And now we'll move on to the Bishop Union High School Associated Student Body Update presented by
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Rivas, and I am the Student Senate ASB representative. Once again, thank you to the City Council for providing the Student Senate time for our reports during these meetings. For those of you who don't know, the Student Senate is a form of student government dedicated to receiving and projecting the student body voice to the community and the Bishop Unified School District. So, the Student Senate has continued to receive a great student participation from our weekly check-ins. Our weekly check-ins usually consist of a question asking students how they are feeling, summed up in a GIF or an image that the students relate to regarding their mental health or just their overall well-being. An open-ended question for students to ask whatever they want. These check-ins are one of the main ways we reach out to students, collect student intel, or ask the student body any questions we may have. Student Senate is also working with North Star to potentially have some stress relieving workshops starting in the next few weeks available to all students, most likely during homeroom. There are more details to come. The Student Senate is working on a video collaboration with the Bronco Roundup to further inform the student body about the new dress code that was implemented at the beginning of this year. We hope to have this published to the students by late next week. Also, more information regarding the weekly check-ins. Students have averaged to feel from a On a scale from 1 to 10, they tend to feel a 5 or a 7. At the beginning, last year, it ranged from a 3 or a 2. So there have been some improvements regarding the students' mental health on our campus. Additionally, the Student Senate's monthly open panel meeting is this Wednesday, April 13th, in the Carl Lind Boardroom, open to all. Once again, thank you to the City Council for giving us the time for our reports during these meetings. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. Now we have the County of Inyo update report prepared and presented by Second District Supervisor Jeff Griffiths. Welcome back, Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Nice to see all of you in person. It's been quite some time. Hello, everyone. Jeff Griffiths, Second District Inyo County Supervisor. I submitted my written report, but I'll go over it briefly and answer any questions if you guys have any. One, I will say that the April 1st runoff report has come out, and the snowpack is at 41% of usual. So it's looking very grim. I think your comments on fire danger are absolutely appropriate at this point in time. The Inyo County Water Department is currently monitoring this closely to see what the impact it's going to have on our agricultural economy, as well as what the water exportation and pumping plans for Los Angeles Department of Water and Power will be. Inyo County is in the process right now of replacing Kelly Williams as our disaster services coordinator to continue our coordination with fire safe councils throughout the area. And I've been working with Supervisor Bob Gardner in Mono County on the development of a Citizens Wildfire Academy, which will be held virtually and in person. It will be 6 sessions that will cover everything from wildfire ecology to home hardening to defensible space to evacuation techniques to how to deal with smoke. Basically everything that we need to know about wildfires. All of the experts are expecting this to be a year as severe as the last few, if not worse. So fingers crossed, maybe it won't be as bad, but it's not looking great. Inyo County also, last week, we passed the dark skies ordinance, which we're very excited about. And hopefully we can work with all of our community partners to build upon previous efforts to getting our night sky the way it needs to be. Let's see, something that I didn't put in my report, but something that I wanted to touch on is there's been a lot of activity in the economic development side of Inyo County. The Small Business Resource Center, the old Crafters Mall on Main Street. I think a lot of you were there at the first entrepreneurial meetup. So the demolition has happened and they're starting the reconstruction of that. We did receive an earmark through Congress to handle all of the information technology that's going on into that system. And we are applying for a RISE grant, which is a Rural Innovation Stronger Economy grant that we think we're very competitive for, and that will make a rural jobs accelerator in that area to work towards some of the emerging economic job trends that we're seeing in this area, including environmental stewardship, climate adaptation, and that type of industry clusters. We also are applying for a Community Economic Resilience Fund grant, which will dovetail with those same industry clusters. And we are in the process of working on a CEDS, a Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, that will be a comprehensive regional strategy with Inyo, Mono, and Alpine counties. So we feel like we are going to be very well strategically placed moving forward in the economic development arena. Really quick airport update. We don't have our final numbers in yet, but the one really good news is there were 0 cancellations or delays related to weather at the Bishop Airport. The numbers look really strong, and we look like we are going to be on track in our first year to get to the 10,000 employment level, which is what we need in order to get our entitlement from the FAA. There is a break right now during the shoulder season, but summer service to San Francisco will start soon, and then winter service will start mid-December. We're anticipating to have year-round service with no break during the shoulder seasons next year. But there's still a conversation to be had about what that schedule looks like and what the airline subsidy looks like for that. Other than that, I don't have anything to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Have any questions? Does anyone else? Thank you for that great report.
I don't have questions, but thanks for the airport update. It truly has turned out to be, I think, something people like and are grateful for, and it's making a difference. So thank you for, I know you put a lot of work into it too, Jeff. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Stephen, I'm disappointed you shaved off the mustache.
I-
We were starting a trend. but
It's
I guess-
summertime. Check back in winter.
Okay. Hi, Fire Chief. Some department reports, and we'll start with Fire Chief Joe Dell. Nice to see you in person.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Busy day today, 7 calls after lunch. We actually ended up bringing crews in to staff the firehouse once the wind started picking up and people came in. Lots of wind activity throughout the county, major damage done in Independence and Big Pine. Luckily, we were spared of the major stuff, but still lots of lines down, lots of trees and stuff across the roadways. In the last 30 days, we've had 6 brush fires, several legal burns and campfires. I think one of these was from a probable illegal firework. And our biggest win was last Thursday on the 7th. Rescue 10 responded to a cardiac arrest with no ambulance available. Inyo County detectives were right there on scene. They started CPR right away. We were able to attach an AED, shock, and bring back a gentleman who was 63 years old. He was since transferred to Renown. I don't know his current condition, but really good work by the team. We transported in our Rescue 10 and we made a difference. And so all the work that you guys have been giving me, the positive support, paid off yesterday or last Thursday. Any questions?
A quick question. So with regards to fire danger, are campfires at this time allowed on Forest Service land and on BLM and on DWP, or?
So campfires are never allowed on DWP land.
Okay.
And then currently right now, the BLM and Forest Service are open for campfires in the primitive spots and then in the campgrounds as well. And so campfires so there should be no campfires in DWP stuff.
Sure. And do you know if the Forest Service is planning to amend that given the drought situation or no?
I assume that it's coming soon. You know, CAL FIRE has an open burning season, which is typically closed down around May. And so as soon as we start seeing some more mega fires around the state, you know, our fire is considered small in the whole greater scheme of things. Consider that Dixie last year took off the entire western slope. So, but it should be right around the corner any day.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Welcome.
All right, Police Chief Richard Standridge.
It's my first in-person meeting with the
Yay.
council since I got here. So if give me opportunity to indulge you a little bit, as you can see, I'm wearing our autism police patches that we're doing in honor of Autism Awareness Month. And we've sold about 180 of the 200 patches we ordered. So I'm anticipating we're going to sell them out. And then the POA and I will get together and decide what we're going to do with the funding that's left over once we take care of our expenses, which should be a pretty good amount to donate to somebody locally. This is Dispatch Appreciation Week. So as you see our dispatchers, I want to make a call into the dispatch center and thank them for all their hard work. I'd like to go over the stats from 2021 for the dispatch center and just to let council know how busy they are and how appreciated they are and how vital they are to our community. In 2021, dispatch center took a total of 3,713 911 calls, which is a pretty huge amount considering that's about 250 a month average. And keep in mind, we have one dispatcher per shift at a time that's handling those calls. That's not counting the radio traffic that's coming in and out from officers, fire personnel, EMS personnel, in addition to those calls. In regards to our just administrative calls. Those are just our non-routine, or not non-routine, but non-911 lines, just routine phone calls into the communication center. They took 17,808 calls just in non-routine. And that is a total of 21,521 calls into the communication center over the course of a 12-month period for 5 dispatchers. And keep in mind, we were down 1 position almost a whole year until recently Dominic John started working on his own. So as you see those folks, hopefully members of the public will have an opportunity this week to reach out and just tell them how much we appreciate them, how vital they are, and how much I respect and admire their hard work and diligence every day that they do come to work. It's very traumatic. One of the things that many people don't realize about the dispatch center, and is very important to recognize them, is that as a police officer, when I respond to a call, I know what the end result is. They give me the information from the beginning. I know what the end is. They never get that closure. So we try to help them out and get that as much as possible, but that is not always the case. Recently, we held the police services technician interviews and had some really good qualified applicants. One candidate really stood out, so we'll be making a job offer probably in the next few days and get a background going. Our police cadet that we hired, police trainee cadet, is background's going well thus far. Look to have that wrapped up probably in the next 10 days and get that job offer done as well. And our academy cadet's doing well. And both of our Rochelle Gosviner, as you know from the monthly report, is now on her own, and Carla Jimenez is not far behind. So I'm really happy with the work product we've got going. And hopefully members of the hopefully citizens of Bishop are watching. As summer increases, so will our citations. So if council doesn't have any questions for me.
I do have a question. When do we expect our cadet to graduate from the academy?
He is graduating in June. So I think it's going to be the first week of June. And then I'll let council know in time in case you want to make arrangements and go down with me like last time. I'll get that information out.
Thank you.
Chief, I was wondering, unless I missed it, have you brought Carla to us to introduce her yet?
Didn't we do it on Zoom?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, I will. I
Okay.
thought maybe we had done that on Zoom.
I mean, I know we did the other recent hire, but not Carla, since she's been
Okay,
back.
yeah,
So,
we'll make that happen.
Great, thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Community Services Manager, Dan McElroy.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick update from our Community Services Department. As you guys can see outside, spring has sprung. So the forest is abloom. There's lots for us to do right now, especially mowing and keeping everything clean. Lots of visitors to the park, as well as the park is just generally really busy right now. And it just gets busier from here on out. So I'll hit you guys with a few numbers and a few things that are going on. We're hosting, obviously, Little League, Eastern Sierra Girls Softball, AYSO, and high school softball and baseball sports right now. We've also been to 2 trainings, our contract training and our harassment awareness training. We've begun our pool prep, and the fence is almost complete around the pool. So if you guys get a chance, please come by and check it out and give us any feedback. It did create a larger area with lots of shade and availability for people to sit and be within that pool area. So especially for large special events such as the Bishop Invitational. We've begun a lot of work with our sports groups, and all of them are participating using our sports sites by doing all of their most of their registration as well as their use and their practice schedules and game schedules, which will allow us to do a lot of tracking through our website so we can give council some numbers, and that way we can kind of track and see everything that we do within the city park. And it should be pretty impressive once we can start collecting all of that data. The new unit at Sunrise has been placed and is in, and they're just finishing up the last couple of walls for the structure. The pool will be opening on the 25th for swim team and lap swim. We have a big event coming in the park, which is going to be the Earth Day on the 23rd. They will be partnering with Lynn Cooper at the Arts Council to do music. Right now, we're just looking at continuing our sports, lots of parties and party requests for the rear pavilion and within the park. Also opening registration for our fish camp today. So we'll be offering that for 20 kids a day on opening day, which will be the 30th and the 1st this year. So it's last Saturday in April. Our summer camp registration is full with a waiting list. And that includes our 8 new summer camps as well. So we are looking at having a very, very busy summer. So I can't thank Brittany and Carrie and Waylon enough for all that they do. And that's the end of my report, unless you guys have anything for me. Okay, sorry. Take it.
Good job.
All right, Associate Planner, Economic Development Coordinator, Elaine Kabala.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It is so nice to be back in the council chambers with you in person. Just a few updates about what's happening with the planning department. We have a number of current planning applications for some very dynamic projects. So we'll be having very busy planning commission meetings over the next couple of months. We have finished our contracting procedures with HDL. So I'm looking forward to moving forward with the cannabis applications and having those scored shortly. We have received a comment letter on the housing element from Housing and Community Development. They've still not accepted our housing element. To put that in perspective, of 197 housing elements that were submitted this year, they have only accepted 7 at this time. So I'm working with a consultant to address this latest round of comments that they've provided, and I will be for your the administrative draft environmental impact report, and I expect that the public review draft will be on the streets shortly. And that'll be a significant milestone in bringing that specific plan to your council for consideration and adoption. Concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I don't know how this works. It's better than Zoom though. So on the housing update, and the numbers are like way crazy there, 197 and 7. Is California set the bar so high, or is something?
Yeah, there was between the last round and even the last couple of years, if your 6-element housing, 6-cycle housing element was due to be adopted like 2019, you didn't have to meet these new requirements. But there's just a ton of new legislation that you have to meet. And in particular, what seems to be difficult is provisions around affirmatively furthering fair housing. That's particularly difficult for the city of Bishop because they want us to identify pockets of segregation and disproportionately served populations. And though I try to explain to them that our city is 2 square miles and you can walk to anything in 20 minutes, they would like me to provide further statistical analysis of that. So that seems to be the primary hangup.
Yeah, because like travel trailer parking driveway is going for what, 200,000 right now? It's crazy. So understand. All right. Well, thank you.
Is that the last holdout that they're having with regards to like what other type of comments are they giving back?
A more detailed analysis. You have to do you have to demonstrate how you're going to meet the regional housing needs assessment or the RENA for a certain number of housing units per income category. And though we were able to demonstrate that if we're successful in partnerships with LADWP in acquiring certain parcels, we would have the land available zoned correctly to meet that housing unit requirement. They wanted further analysis about how we're identifying the number of units that would be placed there realistically when incorporating driveways and infrastructure. So it's pretty detailed information. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for working very hard on that.
Thank you. You're all very welcome. Thank you.
All right, interim city administrator and public works director, Destin Deshawn.
Good evening, Mayor Swartz and council members. So I'll start off on the public works side. This month, the Bishop Area Wastewater Authority will be meeting our quarterly meetings. And I'd like to acknowledge that Walt Pachuki, chairman of their board, is here tonight in attendance. We'll be looking at a feasibility study for a new joint wastewater treatment plant as one of the topics. And then also getting through our environmental issues with our irrigation project and deciding which direction to go with that project. The trunk line, as I said last meeting, is complete. I just wanted to remind everyone that they'll be paving sometimes toward the end of the month to pave the end of the road where it's all torn up from the project. A little bit of concrete gutters that will be done with Public Works Forces will do that gutter, and the contract will be back to pave. What else do we have? The Public Works crew installed the first needle deposit kiosk in the back of the park Friday. Everyone will probably note that it says no sharp objects on them. They're in the process of getting the new decals put on them right now right now they're actually like old medicine and stuff like that is what they were intended to be for. They're brand new, but that's the intention. And again, the hospital will be maintained. Once we've installed them, we're done with them. Hopefully people won't put trash and everything else in them. What else on public works side? And just something in the public works lastly that I wanted to give council a heads up. As our resolution and with our fees last year for building permits, we adopted that we'll follow the construction cost index in the engineering news record each year. As should be suspected, that number is a little over 12% increase this year to building permits, which is commensurate with the cost of building and all that. And so I just want everybody to know, and the public works staff is informing all our contractors and homeowners as we see them to be prepared. So usually people are all right with it as long as they understand what's coming and don't just hit them, and especially contractors that are trying to put bids together this far out in advance. So just a heads up on that end. On the admin side, I have begun the process of working with Enterprise Rent-A-Car to look at the monthly rental of spaces in the Church Street parking lot for their cars. Right now they're totally on board and ready. We're just kind of working through the channels to get to the right person with them, but they fully understand and are on it. Tomorrow, Elaine and I have a meeting with Mammoth Lakes Housing and Visionary Builders who are doing the Silver Peaks project. As we know, IMACA handed that project off to Mammoth Lakes Housing. So I just wanted to meet and get a comfort level with them of how that project will move forward, and just so we know where we're all at with Mammoth Lakes Housing. I'm actively involved in negotiations with all the employee groups. We are also updating our personnel manual and with Jones and Mayer, Dean's firm. What else do we have going on? And that's probably about it. And there's one big, I actually have started participating in the county's broadband meetings that happen every other week. And I think we have some exciting broadband news, but I'm going to wait for the mayor to be able to report that in her report. That's all I have, unless you have anything of me.
No, thanks. Busy. That's great. Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters under the calendar are considered routine by the city and will be acted on by one motion. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
Do not see any public comments. No waved hands. Unless someone else has anything.
Okay. Would anyone like to make?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent calendar as is.
I'll second that.
Great. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mahovy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on to public hearings and action. We will start with item A, public hearing and the first reading introduction of proposed ordinance adding Title 17, Chapter 85, entitled Signage, amending Section 17.76100, Signs, Commercial, and amending Section 17.62 sign. So I would like to, I always get confused on this, make a motion to open the public hearing.
Just open.
I'm just going to open the public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Then we can hear from staff.
All right. It's all you, Elaine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As introduced, this item is in regards to a signage ordinance that would replace the existing signage ordinance in the Bishop Municipal Code. I would like to start with discussing the authorities provided in the general plan and the recommendations for enhancing our signage ordinance. The general plan, both in the land use element and in the economic development element, recognize that downtown enhancement and beautification are important economic development goals. The general plan in the land use element states, design guidelines for new commercial development must be prepared that will focus on creating positive impact to the city. Design review should take place, emphasizing building arrangement, facades, signage, and landscaping. In policy 1.5 of the economic development element states that the city should update the municipal code to strengthen the downtown overlay zone to allow for increased density, mixed use buildings, and to reflect updated planning goals as established through the general plan. Consistent with that direction in the economic development plan, the city of Bishop, as you know, has spent a couple of years developing a downtown specific plan that would address those recommendations. And that downtown specific plan includes specific guidance on signage. The plan and the overlay were developed through a collaborative public process, which included city's officials and staff, stakeholders, and residents. And there was extensive public outreach that was held to develop these standards in collaboration with the public. I think we held 3 well-attended Zoom meetings, one week in-person shred in which we had an office open in downtown that the public could come in and speak directly with me and provide their recommendations on the standards that were proposed. I think there were 2, possibly 3 city council meetings. So there was a lot of opportunity for public input, and there was a lot of support that was shown for developing design guidelines and signage guidelines. The downtown specific plan is intended to enhance the visual and aesthetic appeal of downtown and ensure that new construction, restoration, and rehabilitation projects are compatible with the character of downtown. In addition to the support demonstrated by the community for these guidelines and the recommendations from the general plan, this also addresses a need for businesses and for staff. The existing commercial signage ordinance is very limited in the direction it provides for the type of signage we want. And the exact language of the ordinance is included in your staff report, but generally it can be summed up in one sentence, which is that signage shall not exceed 80 square feet. And historically, this has provided difficulties for staff when a business wants to come in and do anything other than that. If they want to have flashing lights, or they want to have 250 square feet, or they want to have message boards, staff doesn't have really any direction to give them guidance. So we've traditionally required them to go to the Planning Commission, who also doesn't have much ability to provide guidance for implementing the vision that the community would like to see. The ordinance in front of you today would replace that 80 square foot maximum with a ratio of 2 square feet for every 3 linear feet of store frontage. And the intent of that would be to allow for signage that's appropriate and proportionate to the size and the scale of the building. And having run some napkin calculations on what that looks like for the traditional small lot and scale of the downtown area, which those buildings have a linear frontage of approximately 50 square feet, that came out to about 80 square feet of signage. For something like the Vaughn's complex or the Big K complex, That came out to about 250 signage, which is just slightly under what the Planning Commission originally approved for them anyway. But that will reduce some of the administrative procedures when a business wants to come in. They will have better guidance on the signage that they can provide for the size of their building. The ordinance also limits the number of signs by type that would be permitted for each storefront and sets a maximum size limit for each type of sign. The ordinance would prohibit pylon signs in the downtown area and allow new pylon signs by conditional use permit in the future. The sign ordinance also would prohibit temporary banners over 30 days, abandoned signage, billboards, and attention-getting devices such as feather flags. The ordinance further provides guidance on sign placement, including how signs are measured, which is another pain point for staff, where they may be located on a building and the height. The ordinance would provide minimum design and maintenance standards and recommends particular materials would be used to ensure durability and compatibility with the building architecture. The ordinance also establishes rules regarding illumination, so that signage is not disruptive to surrounding properties or confused with traffic control devices. Finally, the signage ordinance would abolish the like-for-like replacement of non-conforming signage. In the past, signage has been considered grandfathered in, and if someone was simply replacing like for like, we didn't require any special permitting, but in the future, signage would be expected to come into conformance with the new standards over time. The ordinance was considered by the Planning Commission at a meeting in a public hearing held on March 28th, 2022. And the Planning Commission provided the following revisions and additions to the signage ordinance as presented to them. First, they recommended that signage enhancing the historic character of Bishop would be exempt from these provisions. So particular signage, thinking for instance of like the Max sign, would be given a historic contextual exemption. Each business would be allowed a minimum of 12 square feet of signage if their storefront frontage was too small to such that that 2/3 ratio would be too small for them to have a sign. Projecting signs may not project further than 6 feet from the building. Illuminated signs would need to comply with any dark sky ordinance. Illuminated signs would need to have controls for the intensity of lighting and must be dimmable. And illuminated signs would also need to have controls for the hours of operations. I would also like to add that in conversation with our council today, that I would recommend removing or rephrasing provisions in the ordinance as presented with regards to signage on public right-of-way. This concludes my overview of the signage as presented to you this evening. But at this time, staff is requesting that the council would hold a public hearing and approve the first reading and introduction of the proposed ordinance by title only. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elaine. Nice work on this ordinance. I think it's a much needed update to our signage. So I will invite the council to make comments and then we can invite the public to comment. Anyone have questions? I have some questions, but I'll let you guys go first.
Sure. I'll ask two questions.
Okay.
And then we'll move on. So one of them you just mentioned when you were talking about historical sign with historical context is exempt. Is that only for existing signs, or if somebody decides to do a sign and claim that it has some historical significance and it's a brand new one, would these regulations not apply to them?
So the language is reads specifically, the Eastern Sierra Corridor has a regionally distinct historic trend of expressive tourist-oriented signs. Signs with historic integrity that contribute to this regional tradition shall be permitted to remain in place and maintained.
Remain in place.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think
So only
that
existing ones.
that refers to existing ones. There's also a provision within the ordinance that if a business was proposing something that was not entirely within these guidelines, there is an administrative process by which they can make the findings and make an argument that would be subject to the approval of the city, that it would be valuable for them to think creatively outside this box.
And then the other question I have, and I guess this is for the general public and for ourselves, is with regards to like election signage for an individual, let's say, like those sorts of political signs. I'm just walking around town, and the main goals of this are to like have a uniform town, to make it more beautiful and everything. And I'm thinking about some of these signs for local offices that are going to be up from February to November. Can we put some sort of a limit that they can go up 3 months before the election and must come down 5 days after, or something like that? Because I would be in favor of supporting something like that.
So thank you, Councilmember Hovey. If I could just chime in here for a second. Upon further evaluation of this ordinance, staff and I had a conversation, and it's my recommendation, I believe staff's intent, to remove any reference to political signage whatsoever. We get into that content-based evaluations on signage. And even if you just identify it as a period of time before and after an election, you clearly are identifying election-related materials and campaign-related materials. And so I think it's the recommendation of legal and staff that we remove any reference to political signage whatsoever, and simply ban any kind of signage on public right-of-way, city public right-of-way, public property. And then if the council in the future wants to revisit the issue of what I will call temporary sign provisions, then that would include all temporary signage, but would not single out specifically campaign-related materials. It was our recommendation to separate those out because temporary sign provisions can get very complex, and there's so many different types of them that we figured that we would run this, get an operative sign ordinance in place, and then if council gave direction to evaluate and bring back a more advanced temporary sign provisions, we could do that.
I said I was going to do
Two.
I still have more.
Oh,
But-
we'll have a
No,
few
no,
other
no.
people. All right. Jose, do you have a question?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Karen?
Sure, I always have questions. Let's start with something that's I was clearly not understanding. Tell me what the difference between internally illuminated and backlit is. I don't know about you, but internally illuminated feels like I don't know. Just explain it to me, please.
Okay, so one of the things that should your council adopt the ordinance that I would look forward to doing is providing a visual guide for businesses.
Oh, good.
That exit sign is internally illuminated.
Okay.
If there were a light shining on the back of it to like illuminate it from underneath, that would be.
So the Bishop Beverage Center is internally illuminated.
Yes.
Stage to
Yes.
Summit is back.
It is internal.
Stage and Summit is backlit. Okay. See,
Yes.
that's all I needed was a visual picture of this. Thank you. My second question has to do with 1785.020 D, strict application of numerical standards but not required. In general, I have some concerns about this whole section, just because it feels like an out for any business who wants to kind of try to come in to whoever this approving authority is and wiggle his way or her way into a larger sign.
So this is the provision that I had mentioned in response to Councilman Mahovey's question a moment ago. And so what it does do is it allows for if someone has a creative idea that does not fit within the numerical standards that are presented here, then they can make the arguments that are presented, the findings that are presented, that it is an improvement over the strict interpretation of this ordinance. And that would be reviewed and approved by the city of Bishop.
And I guess I just worry that this would be a big time suck
you know, having people come in saying, oh, but look at how great this is going to be if we make the sign this way, or look at how great this is going to be. And so I guess I feel like I wish that was tightened up a little bit more so that they're clear about why we're giving them this extra wiggle room.
So, but just to be clear, is this only for existing signs or for any new one?
This would be for new signs.
New signs.
And I feel like the provisions in here, I mean, clearly the intent of the to provide much stricter, like quantitative guidelines that we can make decisions around. But I feel like they have to demonstrate that it exemplifies innovation and creativity and is consistent with the architecture and the context of the building and the neighborhood. And so if they want to come in and, for instance, do a 30-foot tall pylon sign with flashing LED lights so everyone can see their business coming down the grade, purely hypothetical, I assure you, you know, I think it would be difficult for them to make the argument that that is consistent with the vision that we're trying to achieve through this code.
I'm not denying that. I'm just worried about staff time, you know, about having it be sort of open that way for people who want to be creative with their decision making.
Is that any different than the current staff time requirements for having a conditional use permit for every sign that comes into town?
Definitely not.
Exactly. That's kind of where this is going. We could have a 187-page ordinance, or we could try to make it simple and give some guidelines to new signs. Whereas I think Councilman Mohave just alluded to is everything was done by a CUP prior to this. So again, we're unless we want to make a giant cumbersome process to come up with these signs, this is the best case solution and keep CUPs down to the very minimum. I think it'll save staff an enormous amount of time. This.
And I also like that it does give some creativity to businesses coming into Bishop. Like, it gives them the opportunity to not have to fit into this one little box, you know, like with the permission of the planner, they can kind of have some creative license if it doesn't totally fit within our standard. So we want businesses to use their creativity and to make beautiful signs that aren't obnoxious. And so this, I think, kind of helps with that.
I'd have to agree with you on that, Karen. I think that this well-done ordinance that gets us where we need to be, that we don't need to over-regulate this, because to Stephen's point, you know, every sign had to come before staff time and then go through reviews and stuff. I think this is a lot cleaner. And I think it also gives any new business, as we're getting ready to, you know, Bishop's economically going to expand here with airports and hopefully the way we're moving, it gives them some lanes to stay within and a little more guidance to their developers or whoever's working for these companies. It gives them somewhere to start and they know what the rules are. So I think it's you know, are we going to tweak it over the next 5, 10, 15 years? Yeah. But I think it's a good starting point.
So I have a few questions. One is about the windows and the 40%. So is the 40% the one window, or is it 40% of all the windows that a business has?
And so we had some questions about that. Obviously, don't want to make changes before it's considered in a public hearing. But as presented, there is a little inconsistency with regards to window signs and ground floor transparency, in that it both reads, it shall not exceed 40% of the area of the window in which a window covering is in, and then the ground floor transparency shall be a minimum of 40%. So council can provide direction to their preference on that.
Okay. And then also in regards to windows, this is a question I have for the public, for staff, for us, you know, what do you guys think about window clings? You know, like the digitally made window, like they are kind of transparent. You can see out if you're in the building, but you can't see in, and it's a cling that, for instance, the print shop has one right across the street. They have them in their windows. And I've had some in Sage to Summit windows from time to time. You can put like a nice, beautiful picture, some graphics in one window, have other windows open. There, we don't address window clings. We just say 40%. So could a business theoretically have one window have a cling in it?
I think staff would interpret window clings to fit under window signs in this ordinance. So the
Okay.
provisions of window signs would apply to that
And
as
then
well.
flyers, what do we like about flyers and windows? Is that a window sign?
That is not something that is regulated within this chapter. Not to Mr. Pucci's point a little bit ago, not something I think that we would want to include.
So would like sale be a sign or a flyer?
Sale would be included under temporary advertising signage.
Okay. And then the last question I had is colored lights. Is there a reason why we don't want colored lights? Like looking at a sign? What's the,
Caltrans has particular concerns often with colored lights being distracting as a traffic signal.
okay. And blinking lights?
Blinking lights are not addressed in this ordinance at this time.
Do we want to address blinking lights?
By blinking lights, you're referring to the LED strips around the window that really aren't a sign, but they're just part of, here I am.
Yeah, or like, like I've seen some ordinances where you can't have your open sign be a blinking light. It has to be static. You can't, have blinking Christmas lights. I mean, like, even if it's not the holidays, but you just don't want blinking lights.
I mean, I could see the concern with that being that, especially on Main Street, that it is a main thoroughfare and drivers are easily distracted,
Right.
especially with how heavily trafficked it is. And if you're paying attention, if you glance over at the blinking light, you've run over the pedestrian in the crosswalk.
At KFC.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a safety standpoint, I don't, is this the venue to address it in this case?
I was gonna say that, well, is this the right place to add that? Blinking lights.
This would be the time, yes, that we could make minor modifications to this and would be a great time to do that right now. If
So you guys can, I mean, you guys can make a recommendation and, we could talk to you individually and you could come back and give us a recommendation on whether or not you think blinking lights are appropriate for Bishop.
Or maybe you've thought about it already?
Or we can hear some from the public, when it's public comment. Those were just the comments that I had in my head for
That-
some
That's
things.
I look back to my wife and I's shop, we had the blinking lights in there, but you could change the speed and so they weren't it had more of a ambience to it instead of a bam, 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 bam. So
is it blinking or winking?
yeah, is it blinking, fading? I think my thoughts would be, I think that it's something we need to look at, but maybe we put it to staff to see, we're not the only city that probably has had to do this. Let's see what's out there and how other cities addressed it, and what the concerns are, but leave some latitude in there. Christmas time, can you put up Christmas lights?
Oh, well, that's temporary, sure.
But
My button first. I guess I wonder if under prohibited signs, where it says moving image signs, signs designated and erected as to blink, flash, shimmer, glitter. I mean, is it not covered in that?
Yeah, I think that provision, refers to the types of
Words.
LED sites with words. Having like a couple minutes to think on the spot about blinking lights, one thought is that it could be limited to the number of, one per business. Because it's certainly, I don't know that this ordinance wants to be overly prescriptive, but certainly if someone has 5 or a dozen blinking open signs, it sort of defeats the point of.
But yeah, and
It seems a
I
little
encourage,
redundant.
like, you can go back and we can look, you guys can think it through, and it was just something that I had thought of and wanted to get everyone's take on,
Yeah,
so.
I think it's something that we need to look at, but again, we have to be, let's get the ball field figured out, and then what's acceptable, what's not, and what's the process to go through it? Is it, do we send the police down to rip the lights out, or they have to come to us and then go through appeal? We need to see what the process would be. Who determines that?
Well, so that touches on one of the points that I just wanted some clarification on about, since this is in the municipal code, the mechanism for enforcement is the same as all our other municipal ordinances. So typically somebody will file a complaint, and then staff will look at the complaint, and then after the first violation, it's a fine of whatever, second fine. And so it just follows the same pattern for all of the other municipal code, right?
Administrative citations, yes. So this is start off with a meeting and then move on, progress as it needs to go.
And it goes to the building owner,
Yes, it would go to the property. owner.
to the property owner. Okay. Okay.
You have more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
These might be a little contentious. So with regards to design standards, and this is 17.85.060F, which starts on page 12 and goes on to page 13. There are lots of verbiage in here that are pretty weak. Like may include, are encouraged. And so doesn't this sort of vague language just invite provisions to be ignored? And so do we want to do anything to kind of toughen those up? And in particular, I wanted to get everybody's opinion on what you think about adding something that where we're explicit about not having plastic or vinyl signs that are not UV resistant. Because how many signs have we seen go up made of plastic and within 2 weeks are burnt black and just are disgusting? So I'd advocate adding language for that.
I actually wrote down burnt black signs in my notes earlier today because there are so many of them. And I was wondering, after we get through this, if we're going to be able to do something about those. But that's a different subject.
And that brings me on to the last point that I had, which is with regards to non-conforming signs. The provision that is in this right now about non-conforming signs, which is 17.85.080, basically reads as if non-conforming signs are grandfathered in regardless of their state, and that they would only have to be brought up to any sort of to conform to this ordinance if the sign owner were planning to modify it. And I would like to see what we can do about that. In particular, I think it'd be prudent to put a time limit on when some of the most egregious ones, so such as ones that extend beyond the building or not advertising for anything on site, are removed. I mean, the prime example that I'm thinking, when you're on the corner, when you're coming north into town and you're on Main Street at Line, you can see at least 3 non-conforming signs, a few of which extend above the building, one which advertises for a business that is not even in city limits. And they're all in not in the best of shape. And currently this, the non-conforming provision says that unless they're gonna update them, that they can stay there as is. And I just wanted to get a sense what other people think about that.
So as staff, I think that your interpretation is correct, except as where the signs would be prohibited. So for signage that have sign cabinets, or is abandoned signage for business that's no longer there, or is for a business that is off-site, and those are all prohibited, I think that those could be enforced immediately under this ordinance.
Even with the non-conforming sign as it's written.
Yes, because they are prohibited. I also think that things like abandoned signage were included in the nuisance ordinance that the council passed at some point.
Okay. Good. So the non-conforming sign exemption is just for those that don't necessarily meet the like size, location, and everything, but the ones that are in the prohibited list earlier on, those we can start enforcing once this ordinance comes into effect.
Yes, that's my interpretation.
Is that our attorney's interpretation?
Correct.
I think that's great. That's, yes, so awesome. And as far as the design guidelines that Stephen mentioned, I would love to have the words shall be taken out and put in will, instead of should be neutral colors. I think will be is a much nicer way to say it.
I mean, I guess we could hear some public comment, but you don't want to take out a business's ability to be creative, and if a business has bright colors that fit within the look of our town, then I think they should be allowed to, have, we don't, bright colors, neutral, you won't be able to see anything. I think that I like the fact that there's a little bit of room for interpretation to give a little bit of creativity to the business.
I would support you on that, Mayor. That I think we pay our employees and our staff to do it, the job of looking out for us. We're setting, I think, an overall picture here, but to have some latitude and let them determine what is appropriate, what's not, because to put it in here, black and white, it's not appropriate, it is appropriate, might be different depending on each individual business. Some business might need a red sign to go with their red business. I don't know what they're selling.
And I guess for me, that would be where my D of comes in, that if we put will be, but they have this provision of D that I was talking about earlier, it does exactly what Elaine says it would do, is we put the word will in, and then they come to us and say, the reason we want it to be this different color, or the reason we want it to be this different size is this, and they have the flexibility to allow it.
Every sign has to be approved anyways. So there doesn't need to be a will as anything. No matter what they put in here, still has to go before our planning department to be approved.
It makes sense to strengthen some of this language because the may
That's
that is
the one that
included
jumps
here.
out at me on number 2.
Yeah, is it also means that you can do what you want. And I would agree with Councilman Kong that this sets guidelines, but there is a provision that allows for someone to make an argument justifying how that creativity is in the benefit of the community.
I agree with staff. From a legal perspective, it's important that ordinances establish law is what they do. And so we need certain affirmative language in those ordinances. And I think that some of it can be cleaned up from, going from should be to must. But what I'm hearing from council is that they would like some flexibility in terms of if you're under the category of a must and you don't want to comply with that, is there a way that you can submit something else? And I do believe that there is, while still preserving the enforceability of the ordinance.
Well, whatever, as long as creativity can maintain. Anyone else have any other questions?
And concerning Councilmember Hovey's part on the, because like Dan, I'll take a business, Denny's. That one side's kind of all burned up. I saw under here, under the maintenance, it
Oh,
says
does it
signs
think
shall.
about
I don't know if we need to change that language or just start enforcing what's in here under maintenance.
Where is that stuff?
It was under blah, blah, blah. There's a section under maintenance, say shall be maintained.
Yeah, it's
30 days.
unlawful to fail to maintain any sign, including signs exempted from these regulations with respect to permit. So it's.
Would that
B.
cover that kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we could, even those, we could start enforcing some sort of maintenance on them.
Like burned out light bulbs and all the things. Perfect. I'm good with it.
Okay.
Public.
Then let's open it up to the public. Would anyone from the public like to comment? Come on up, introduce your name, your address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you can. No, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. I just know Cindy's done a lot of signs.
Really need my address?
No,
My
just
name
that you
is-
live in the city of Bishop.
My name is Cindy and I own Mammoth here in Bishop. I've been here for 23 years now, here in the Valley. And I submitted a letter to both Dijon and Kabbalah about how important signage is in every community. And I studied graphics when I was in high school and just really recognized the importance of how good, clean, directional, simple, but it creates a really wholesome environment for the community. And so I guess a couple of things, I missed the beginning of the meeting. I apologize for not being here sooner. Sorry about that. But some of the eyesores that I see being in the sign industry is for sure the really, really, really bright LED like John's muffler. Those are just blatantly blinding. And I don't know whether Caltrans or this particular organization can call attention to maybe that needs to come down a little bit. Denny's is a great example. That sign is so dangerous because there's a big split in the middle. And when the wind comes in, the whole thing moves. And if that thing came down and crushed a child or anything, could just sever body parts. I've gone to them already and I've said, maybe we should address this. Never got called back from the owners or managers or whoever's running that franchise. You talk about the burnt signs. I've done a lot of exploration into that. Digital prints have to have a UV clear coat put on top of them because they're water-based inks. And with our elements, with very little, factors blocking the direction, the sun ray, it just melts those signs, literally. It just burns them about. And if they don't have clear UV coat on it, that will be like 2 weeks to 3 months to 7 months, something like that, depending on the direction of where that sign is in relationship to the rays. I think for a time, one of the sign shops was printing a tremendous amount of digital prints without a UV clear coat because they just burned up really fast. And so I went to some of these people who make these prints, who make the machines that make the prints, that make the UV clear coats, said that sounds like a symptom of not putting the UV clear coat on. So they were either cutting corners to save the client money or something was happening because you should normally get between 3 to 5 years before a sign starts to become very cloudy and black. So I never invested in those machines because I didn't feel we had enough client to support it. Those machines are a couple hundred, they're $100,000 for a really nice printer. And then you buy the UV clear, and I order mine out from vendors around Los Angeles or up in Reno and make sure that they do all the the things that are necessary to keep those signs in compliance in terms of not being able to turn black in a very short period of time. So I think that you've hit on the key things. I would like to see again, more community, like City of Bishop, Mule Capital of the World. I'd like to see little signs down Main Street that show what we have and who we are and give it some more character. I've always thought that was fun. I really love ironwork for hanging signs, to do little sidewalk signs under the streets, but then we have limitations that if it's below 7 feet, or if it's 7 feet from the sidewalk to the bottom of the sign, it's not permissible. So that kind of eliminates some of that, which I think is a very strong way to build character and quaintness in a community. The most important thing is to allow someone coming in to show what they have. Oftentimes, I'm going to say probably 60%, 70% of the people have no idea what they want. And so they'll ask for me to design something, or they'll have someone design work for them. And if they've stepped out of that box, instead of just doodling on their own piece of napkin or something and saying, this is what I'm going to do, I think that there's a better chance that the signs will actually have a better look altogether. And I don't know, I just would like to continue. I'm getting older now, and I don't know how much longer I'll be doing signs, but I love what we do. And I'd like to see more of what we did at Sage to Summit. That was our last mural that we did. And we're going to be doing some new work for Great Basin Bakery. And I guess that's all. Is there any other questions that anybody might have?
Questions?
How do you feel about the city having a signage ordinance?
How do I feel about what?
The city having a signage ordinance like this?
I think it's fundamental. I think it's fundamental. You've got to have some guidelines to go by. I always felt that the square footage area, the 80 square feet, is a little bit, if they've got front and back, that becomes a little bit of an issue for me. Sometimes the back entrances of a restaurant or a place is much smaller than what is facing Main Street. And I just would be a little more lenient with square footage in terms of what you can actually propose as an idea. There was I think that can be restricting. You talked a little bit about the Mylars or the digital prints that go on the glass. I went up and worked for a guy up in Carson City for a little tiny while, couple months, and they did a tremendous amount of that printing, and they would put it on side glass windows in a mall. Again, I'm concerned about its longevity with the sun here. It may look really great for a month, and then it may start to go. And I would definitely put restrictions on when your signs start to melt, that they need to go. So if it's 2 years have gone by and it's clear and clean, there's not an issue. But if 2 months go by and the sign changes color, that needs to be enforced.
That's good.
I would think that would be an important thing to do, because digital prints are such a great marketing tool because they're so affordable, but they also don't have the life. Like I paint on glass with one-shot, because vinyl, if you put vinyl on it, the edges will start to come away. It might crack, it'll fade. I just think the presence of paint and gold leaf look much better. There's inside mounting and there's outside mounting. Outside mounting, you get a much more contrasty read. Inside is a little more subdued, but the life of that vinyl or that life of that image on the glass will outlast anything on the outside. So things to consider. And I've kind of done a little bit of everything: outside the windows, inside the windows. if you're in malls, that's easy. But in a community where you're running down Main Street, most people want the most read for what they can do, which is usually on the outside. So I can't.
Thank you,
think of
Cindy. Thanks for
anything
taking the
else.
time.
Thank you. It gives me the impression that you don't feel your business threatened by this signage ordinance, or that this is too restrictive or
I don't think
may
so.
affect your business.
I submit stuff all the time. And in the last 6 months, I've had more sign calls than I have in a couple, 3 years. You know, I really took a hit in '08 and went and got my painting license. And then things gradually started to pick up, and then COVID hit and nobody was going in and out of things, but we've got a lot of work.
Good,
Nice.
Great.
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Elaine, I had one last question. And so just to be clear, this ordinance applies in all zones?
It does not. It applies to commercial zones. And signage is not permitted in residential zones.
Okay, and so all right, so when the specific plan comes in and there are new zones, would it also apply automatically to those?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have any further questions. Does anyone else have any further questions? Any more public comments?
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
And I do not see any waved hands.
And we got a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second that motion.
Okay. We got a first and a second. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mohovi,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis, Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right. You got your direction?
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
No,
are we doing an actual reading on it?
Oh, yeah.
You want to approve the first reading and introduction?
Okay. We'll do an actual reading on it.
I guess there was one other question that was hiding under here, I guess, but I did ask staff earlier. So with regards to message signs, there are only a few of those in town right now. And one of them happens to be at the middle school. And it does change quite often, and it is often very bright at night, beaming down Pine Street. And but does this give us does this ordinance apply to that one, since it's not technically in a well, it is technically in R2, and so they shouldn't have a sign to begin with?
This was a question that was raised by the planning commission as well. Is my understanding from council at the time that they have a sovereignty and we would not have jurisdiction over their signage.
Okay.
Schools are managed by the state and fall under state guidelines. But I do think that we could have a conversation with them about at 9 o'clock or something, turning it off. They no longer need it. You're right. It's really bright. I'll have that conversation with them. And just to clarify one last thing, the blinking signs, we talked about blinking signs and blinking lights.
Mhm.
Is that all one thing? Are you clear with that, Elaine?
Yeah, thank you actually for getting clarification on that. I was going to address blinking signs. I was not going to address blinking lights in my revision. And I was going to limit the number of signs was. I believe where we left the discussion.
Before we put this to motion on the first reading, Dean, are we reading first reading as amended, which we have we really amended it, or?
Yeah, the language could just be simply the direction, once you conduct the first reading and adopt it with the directed changes to staff.
Yeah, make that motion
By title only.
by title only.
I'll second.
Okay, call for a vote.
Yeah.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bishop, State of California, adding Chapter 85 signage to Title 17 zoning and amending Section 1776, 110 signs, commercial, and 1762, 100 sign of Title 17 zoning of the Bishop Municipal Code. Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mohovi,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Elaine.
Well done.
Here.
All right, so we have Elaine again. Moving on to item B, public hearing and the first reading introduction of a proposed ordinance modifying Title 17, Chapter 17.75 accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units of Title 17 zoning of the Bishop Municipal Code.
Good evening once more, Mayor and Council. As
I would
introduced,
just note that Mayor's opening the public hearing.
And I'm opening the public hearing. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
thank you very much, Mr. Pucci. As introduced, this item is in regards to modifying the city's accessory dwelling unit ordinance. The accessory dwelling unit ordinance was adopted by the City Council in December of 2019 in accordance with state law. And the existing ordinance in the city of Bishop limits the height of accessory dwelling units to either no higher than the tallest structure on the parcel or as required by the base zoning district, whichever is less, and no higher than 16 feet on properties with multifamily residential dwellings. What has come as a result of that is that I have on occasion applicants who would like to put an accessory dwelling unit over an existing garage, or perhaps construct a new building in which that there would have a dwelling unit over a carport or a garage. And because of that 16-foot height limit, even if they're only seeking to go as high as 18 feet, we cannot permit that accessory dwelling unit. So essentially, anyone who wants to do 2 stories or do it over a garage is not able to do so. Staff is proposing that we modify the ordinance to allow for up to 26 feet for an accessory dwelling unit if constructed over a carport or a garage. That would be consistent for both single family zoning zones as well as multifamily zoning districts. And that's consistent with the base height allowed in all residential zoning districts in the city of Bishop, which is 26 feet in height. This concludes my overview as the modified ordinance is presented. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. At this time, staff would recommend that the council hold a public hearing and approve the first reading introduction of the proposed ordinance by title only. Thank you.
Okay, any comments? Oh, any public comment?
I see no raised hands.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second. There's
Slow
Do we have any, do we have any
guys are
comments? Do you have any questions?
Not a question, but I think this move would allow the city to add more housing units to our count. I think this is a great move. So thank you, Elaine, for doing the work, getting it done.
I don't have any questions.
I think
We have a motion on the table.
we have a motion and a second on to close the public hearing. So
Need to call for a vote.
Call for a vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mohovi,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Any questions?
Yeah. I think this is it's great, and it's great that we're addressing an oversight that we had. I'm just curious, do we have to be explicit and define what combined structure means when it comes to setting the height limit? I mean, we have seen people in the past, especially with regards to ADUs or short-term rentals, try to interpret the law in creative fashions. And so I'm just curious if we not have to be explicit about the combined structure, meaning the height of the garage and the structure on top of it.
So the language reads specifically no more than 2, well, this is for multi, right, that no such unit shall be more than 16 feet in height unless located above covered parking, in which case the combined structure shall be no more than 26 feet in height. So I think that it is specific.
Okay.
in saying that it would be the combined dwelling unit and the garage, but if staff would like me to define that further, I'd be happy to do so.
I think that's good.
How many permits have you had to deny because our height limit was so restrictive?
4.
Oh, yeah, so that's significant.
Do you sell those people on, do you have a means to reach out to them?
I do.
Any other questions?
Would anybody on that side of the room like to make a motion?
No, please.
You guys
This is our first time.
All right, fine.
You don't have it? I'd like to make a motion to approve the first reading and introduction of the proposed ordinance modifying section 17.75.040, accessory dwelling units, development standards of chapter 17.75, accessory dwelling units, and junior accessory dwelling units of Title 17 zoning of the Bishop Municipal Code by title only.
I'll second that.
Call for a vote?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bishop, State of California, modifying section 17.75.040, accessory dwelling units, development standards of chapter 17.75, accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units of Title 17 zoning of the Bishop Municipal Code. Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mohovi.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Whew. We got through the public hearings. Okay, on to new business. City of Bishop part-time employees wage scale for July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Administration.
Right, council, good evening again. And this is mostly a housekeeping item, but a very important one. The city utilizes part-time workers in almost every department. These part-time workers vary from office assistants in the city hall to seasonal workers at the park. Each of them play a valuable role in the city's success, and the city has not reevaluated part-time salaries in over 7 years. Over the past 7 years, there has been adjustments to part-time salary, but it's always been to raise the very bottom above minimum wage. Minimum wage has driven the increases over the past 7 years. With that happening, we've also lost any separation between our returning staff and the brand new employees. I met with finance and HR side, and we sat down and decided to take a wholesale look at the whole city, all of our part-time wages. As you can see in the staff report, park staff, Janet with HR has contacted other cities, City of Porterville. And to remind you, it's hard to find cities that provide all the services that we do. Many of those are private services. But we were, even as little as Independence Pool, we contacted them. They had a swimming pool, found out our lifeguards and swim instructors were way under what they pay in Independence. So long story short, there's very important jobs, and we're handing a lot of responsibility to especially our lifeguards and our younger employees out there. So we need to look at these salaries again. There are several positions on this wage scale that you'll see are not filled and haven't been filled in a number of years, but we again did not want to miss in raising everyone. So when we do need it, they are running at the right wage scale. I also would like to add that in our personnel rules, we will be adding a classification in there for part-time employees, which we do not have now. And they will then be entitled to cost of living raises, and hopefully we'll avoid getting ourselves in this situation. They'll be looked at every year or every negotiations and be represented in that fact. And also it's just important that we're competitive with the private sector out there. When the fast food industry is paying more than we're paying, a lifeguard, then we need to make that substantial change across the board with all of them. By offering these competitive wages, the city will attract and retain higher quality employees that provide services to very important seasonal programs. The city will also save money by retaining employees and not having the recurring expense of training new employees continually. The impacts of these, if every position was filled, and we also base it off of last year's hourly, the amount of hours that were put in by our part-time employees. This increase across on those wage scale would amount to about $89,000 for the fiscal year 22-23. This time, staff recommends that council approve the proposed part-time wage scale to become effective fiscal year 2022-2023. With that, I open it up to any questions or comments.
I think it's great. I frankly was embarrassed sometimes when I would see an ad in your register for a job posting and the wage. So I think this is very appropriate.
I'd like to propose that any job wage that we have listed or increase to $16, that we make it $18 minimum. We need to be fair and competitive to the private with the private sector. So there are a few of those, maybe 3 or 6 positions that are going to increase from 15 to 16. So if we can make those 18.
Yeah, the lifeguard, activity
Yes.
leader.
Yeah, I think those two right there are both at 16, so we could go follow more closely with the jobs that start at 18 and go up to 20 over 18, 19, and 20. I'm trying to look for one. Custodian, facility maintenance worker is at 18, 19, 20 steps on those. So
There is one more. The public works intern starts at 17. We can make that 18 as well.
do that, yes.
Bless you.
I'm okay with that.
Me too. Any other questions? Any public comment?
I see no raised hands.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed part-time wage scale to become effective fiscal year 2022, 2023.
I'll go ahead and second that.
call for a vote
With the change.
With changes as.
With the changes as mentioned.
with the changes. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Mohovi,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Moving on to B, appointment of city administrator. Council to consider appointment of permanent city administrator and authorize execution of city administrator employment agreement with Destin Deshawn. This is our city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On January 10th, 2022, Public Works Director Destin Deshawn was appointed acting city administrator and further appointed as interim city administrator on February 1st, 2022, while the city council considered its options for filling the position on a permanent basis. Since those appointments, the city council requested a draft agreement be brought forward for its consideration to appoint Mr. Deshawn to the permanent position of city administrator for the city of Bishop. Mr. Deshawn is Works Director for the city of Bishop and has been part of the administrative and management team for over 21 years and over 26 years of total combined employment with the city of Bishop. A summary of Mr. Deshawn's employment history was provided to you in my staff report. The proposed budget impacts, the proposed employment agreement is for a 3-year term and includes a monthly salary of $13,005. The agreement also provides that Mr. Deshawn will continue to have use of a city-owned vehicle. Mr. Deshawn will also be provided medical, leave, and retirement benefits as provided in the management MOU with the city of Bishop. If appointed, Mr. Deshawn would continue to serve as the city's public works director until that position is filled. Recommendations, council consideration to appoint Destin Deshawn as the permanent city administrator and authorize Mayor Schwartz to execute the proposed city administrator employment agreement. Thank you.
I would just like to thank Mr. Deshawn for stepping up, and I am very excited to support this agreement. Does anyone else have any other comments?
Well, let me see.
Any questions?
I know, not a question, Destin. I want to thank you. I've kind of been along on the ride with you for quite a few years, and You're very impressive. Every time we put you in a position or you get into a position, you take off and do a great job at it, and you take it to heart, and you look out for the best interests of the city. And I truly admire that. I truly respect that. And I thank you for, you make my job easier in everything you do. And I'm not just saying that, Destin, because you paid me. No, you truly do. I think you make my job easier. And I really do enjoy working with you and having you a part of our team. So thank you. And your family's here.
Ditto.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is, I mean, you can't find a better example of a public servant who cares more about the institution these days. Because, I mean, if you look at Destin's credentials, he's been here for what, like 26 years, starting fairly low, dedicated a lot of his work to the city, worked his way up, learned the ropes, learned of all of the other departments out there, and definitely is a stellar team player and able and has a great gift, not only to see what's important, but also to convey that message to everybody on the team and getting everybody to work together. I mean, all of the staff members and everybody in the back row, I think you guys would agree with that. And so I think it's yeah, all I can say is, again, thank you for stepping up and for deciding to have these 5 crazy bunches up here to be your boss. And I've been definitely impressed by all of the responsibility you've taken on, all of the issues that we've started to tackle more unified as a city. And I'm really looking forward to everything we can accomplish in the coming few years.
And I'm just going to say, because poor Destin's already bright red, that I've really enjoyed the way that you want a hard charge. I'm a hard charger, and I like the direction that we're going, and I'm excited. So
I'd like to say that I met Destin and his wife Sue at the gym at 4:30 in the morning when we used to go there every single day. And it was always a pleasure, and it's a pleasure working with you. You don't only make our jobs easier, you make everybody's job easier by providing support, leadership, by being there for them. And if at any moment any staff member doesn't feel that way, they can come to you and they can come to us. You can come to us at any time you need us. And we know that we can come to you anytime we need you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
And to add to that, the members of the public who have interacted with him know that they can go to him.
Yes,
And they
do.
will always be met with a respectful face who is willing to address their needs to the best of our abilities. And that, I think, is tantamount.
And I think that another component to that, yeah, the public can go out and come to speak to Destin about a problem, and he's not afraid to talk to them, to respectfully address it. But we also, up here, we have to work within so many entities up and down this valley, whether it's county, different counties, different municipalities within the state. And so far, in every job you've done, Destin, you've proven that you can handle that you can make those relationships, you can keep them, you can build them, and fix them, which is sometimes we do a number on those relationships up here, and you've done a good job at fixing the ones. So I think that's really important. I've said it lots of times before. Good city administrator is a 6th council member, just doesn't vote, but he's critical to making this job work. And without him or that person, it's almost impossible. So I look forward to this, and I will not make this proposal.
Oh, we still need public comment.
Any public comment?
I see no raised hands.
Okay.
You guys gonna do it?
Do I have to do it?
Oh,
my
Jose's got it.
I will make a motion to appoint Desto Dijon as city administrator and authorize Mayor Schwartz to execute the proposed city administrator employment agreement.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Kong,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Mahovy,
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Okay, future agenda items. Jim, any future agenda items?
Madam Mayor, I usually never have a future agenda item because we do such an amazing job here. But I've been noticing a lot of new street lights going up in Bishop, the white LED lights. Up and down Pine Street is now lit up. And I'd like to see if it's possible to have maybe a staff report from DWP or someone come before us and kind of tell us what's going on, where are we heading, what's the time frame. If that would be something that the council might entertain, so we kind of know what's happening.
That'd be great.
You like that?
You're
You
very
like
Yes.
that?
right.
You like
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Right.
So, Dustin, will you meet with DWP and we can have a report? Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Stephen, do you have any future agenda items?
Let's add a discussion on temporary sign provisions.
Don't you want to give Elaine a break?
We need a break.
She needs
It doesn't have to be next time. It could be like, I just want to get it on the list. Time scale 4 to 6 months.
Okay. Jose?
Broadband. I know you have an update, but I think in our near agenda will be a discussion presentation about broadband in Bishop.
Okay. Does everyone want to have a discussion? Maybe.
A presentation, maybe.
We're kind of meeting with the county, right? Like that you're working with the county.
Working with that group, it's Leslie Chapman and Scott Armstrong, their IT, and they have every other week meeting.
Maybe when there's something of significance.
Yeah, and
Could we-
they're talking about middle mile and stuff, and so just trying to be along with part of the planning as it goes on, because they also have state and federal funds to make that happen, the planning, design, and all that, and hopefully I'm partaking in. We already have the middle mile here, so we're looking at the final mile. So I want to be strategically in line with them when they get ready to start designing that final mile.
Would it be the kind of thing that we could have a presentation from them on the scope of the project?
Yeah,
From them or somebody else.
yeah, and I think at the board meeting, they're getting an update from Scott tomorrow on it again as well. But yes, we could, I'm sure they would be happy to, Scott, we could get him to come in and talk about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, if it's like like when there's something.
Pertinent to the
of
city,
some- yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, they're just looking at that middle mile, which getting into Aspendale and Death Valley areas and things like that. And then once they get the middle mile complete, then they'll go to the final mile, where we want to be very actively involved with that part of it.
Sounds good.
Karen, do you have any?
I don't have anything.
Okay, I don't have any future agenda items either. All right, let's go to council and committee reports, which go in the same order. Jim?
I was down in Independence today during the wind adventure, and it was, yeah, Chief Dale, you were right. It was crazy down there.
Wind dependence.
It was wind dependence, yes. Sorry, Jeff, your tree blew down and your, was that the blue spruce, I believe? The big tree out front is now upside down.
Pine Tree.
No,
Yeah.
it's just
Out of
sideways.
Like that.
But,
I'll tell you tomorrow.
yeah, but hats off to all the public safety down there, Independence Fire, Caltrans, everyone was going crazy and did an amazing job. I'm glad it wasn't as bad up here, but it was a couple hours of sheer, I've never seen anything like that. Other than that, I will let my partner here talk about the SCOG meeting, but we had an ESTA meeting last Friday. A good meeting. There was my notes are here somewhere. There was a public hearing on a short range transit and the coordinated human services plan. And they had ESTA has an outside, what's the word I'm looking for, Karen?
Consultants.
Consultants.
Short range transit plan.
Consultant who came in and did a great presentation and wow, look at me on camera up close. Did a great job on looking at ESTA, and they did do kind of short range within the next 2-3 years, up and down the valley. And there was a lot of talk about the line from Bishop to Reno, which is the most used and I think most appreciated by the community and the citizens. So that is looking at some expansions in services to assist people getting from back and forth between here and there. So there is good stuff happening in ESTA. To let the council know that there is some good stuff happening. And that's it for me. Look at that.
Stephen?
I didn't have any committee meetings in the past 2 weeks, but I did go through and write some justification and apply for a couple of congressional earmarks from Senator Padilla, hopefully for next year. So we'll keep hounding them. One was for continuation of Warren Street and safe route to schools. And then the other one was for plans to get planning stages for a PD Fire Department Civic Center building. So they're all long shots, but at least I wrote it.
Jose?
I didn't have any commission meetings over the last couple of weeks, but I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to have a wonderful week vacation with my daughters. It was very nice. Thank you.
Karen?
I don't know, like Jim, I'm scared of the camera. So I did not have any committee meetings, but I do want to thank a bunch of our staff. ICOE, Inyo County Office of Education, put on a fifth grade day, we call it, but it's fifth grade college and career day. And we haven't had it in 2 years. Generally speaking, we do it out at Saracoso. And this year we did it at the fairgrounds on last Friday. And Christina was there and Chief Dell was there and Sergeant Holstein and Officer Peak. They were all there showing our fifth graders, local fifth graders, how great their jobs are and helping them to think about jobs in those two areas. They were there from 8 in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon. And if you've never experienced 30 kids, fifth graders in 20-minute increments, 8 groups of them, poor Officer Peak was covered in fingerprint dust. He had big dots on his forehead, but it really went well. Got some great reviews from the fifth graders, and I hope they had some fun while they were there. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to them.
My son Cosmo was extremely fired up, but he said that no career beats becoming a pro soccer player, and that is his path. So I got an email from a gentleman from Frontier mid-March, and he really didn't explain the content of who he was other than, would you like to meet with me? So I reached out to Destin and I was like, this guy from Frontier wants to meet with us. He was coming from Murrieta, which is far. And he came in to let us know that Frontier is investing huge resources into our broadband here in the city. And they are going to be a major competitor to Suddenlink. They're going to double the speeds. The prices are going to be affordable. It was kind of like a dream come true. I almost like, we'll see it when we believe it, but he said in a couple months, they're going to start upgrading.
July.
Yeah, they're already existing lines. So it's like, they already have the infrastructure in place. They just need to beef it up.
So they'll upgrade everything to fiber, 2 gigs. 2 2 gig service at your house. Like,
Yeah.
Gigabit per second.
that's what he's saying. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and he said that like the fastest plan was gonna be, he couldn't give us hard numbers, but $79.99 a month, $79 a month.
Hmm.
So
Way better. Well,
anyway,
not making
so that
any
was,
endorsements here.
he didn't know much about Digital 395, but they're just gonna use their existing capacity to give us connectivity just they identified Bishop as a market to invest in. So,
Which we are.
yeah. So,
Yeah, he mostly was here just to try to understand the encroachment process to be able to begin work. Design is starting on May 1st, and then implementation, construction on July 1st. And, they already have they're just replacing what they already have with high speed. Yeah, no more copper. It was just almost like said,
it was like,
Amazing.
it was like an angel. It was like, yeah, it was.
we were getting a salesman. And
Yeah, we did. We kind of were like, okay, see what he has to say. And then SCOG, we had, I know Jeff mentioned in his report, but I just wanted to reiterate how exciting I thought the RISE grant was that the county is applying for. And basically, Janet Hatfield of the White Bark Institute is the project manager of that donut project. And with that project, they are going to need a lot of high qualified, skilled workers in, forestry and environmental science. And so this White Bark Institute has partnered with the county and the Sierra, the resource center, the new business resource center, to create this program to support these small businesses to bid for these contracts with the Forest Service and then have employees that are highly skilled that come out of Saracoso. So I just thought the whole thing was
Local and regional.
amazing, and I just kudos to the county. And anyway, we got a presentation from it that just sort of struck a chord with me on just how great all these different organizations can come together and help not just the economy, but public lands at the same time. Let's see. So what else did we do with the SCOG? The Forest Service reached out to the SCOG and they are requesting to give $150,000 to have a person just collaborate with them on different projects that the forest can't handle themselves. So the SCOG, even though we don't have the capacity to have like a person, was thinking maybe some sort of local agency, and Elaine might be able to speak more to it. But anyway, like the Forest Service really has this unmet need to interact with the partner agencies like us. And so they are going to help fund a position to help them interact with municipalities to further their goals of helping people recreate on the public lands and working with, forest health. So anyway, so that was really good. And we also looked at some of the applicants for the NEPA process for the donut project, which you're on actually that subcommittee. But there's two competing consultants.
We had there's two competing consultants and we went over all their, my brain is blank tonight.
Just two competing consultants that will do the NEPA analysis for
Yeah.
the donut project.
Yeah, everything they submitted to their request for proposals, we've been going through it. And
Right.
so that will be coming before SCOG soon, the decision.
Right. And then we also talked about the SCOG talking to different administrators and seeing if there's any more unmet needs that the SCOG could help facilitate for regional projects. And so the four administrators are going to get together and discuss discussing the scope of work that we have moving forward. Yeah, and then what else? ESTA, we did the short range transit plan. And I think I mentioned this in a previous report, but there is not going to be, they're cutting the Bishop Creek shuttle from service starting this summer. And there are private taxi Mammoth area transportation services that will help people. And then there's always hitchhiking. So, okay, so that is,
Before we close the meeting,
yeah,
I'd like to hope that tonight I changed lives for the better.
yes, that is a nice one. You already do.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting to Monday, April 25th, 2022, here in the city council chambers at 6 p.m. All right. Yay.
We should wait. And we always wait.
I can't wait till we have cake again. Oh, the gavel.
Gavel. Yay. Karen,
can't-
you know, I never got to gavel.
That's, you did get a gavel.
I did get a gavel, but I never got to gavel.